Okay, so when you hear the word Viking, what pops into your head? Probably long ships, maybe some epic battles, and a pantheon of gods like Odin and Thor. But what was their religion really like? And maybe more surprisingly, what does it have to do with us today? All right, let's dive into the fascinating and pretty complex world of Norse paganism.
So, on the surface, this seems like a pretty simple question, right? I mean, we've all seen the pop culture version of it. But that picture of a single, unified Viking religion that everyone followed in exactly the same way, well, the real story is a lot more interesting.
That's right. The idea that there was one single Norse religion with, say, a central authority like a pope, or one single holy book like the Bible, that just wasn't a thing. The historical reality was much, much more diverse.
So instead of thinking of it as one religion, it's way more accurate to think of ancient Norse paganism as a whole family of related beliefs. Now, they all shared some big ideas, a worldview tied to nature, to fate, a cyclical view of time. But the details could vary a lot depending on where and when you lived.
The faith we usually just call Norse was mainly practiced in Scandinavia and Iceland. But if we zoom out a bit, we see it was just one part of a much bigger family of Germanic traditions that stretched all across Northern Europe. You had the Anglo-Saxon faith over in England and other similar beliefs among Germanic tribes in Central Europe. It's kind of like different dialects of the same language. They all shared a core, but with their own unique local flavors.
And you can see that connection right here, clear as day. The main god of wisdom, who the Norse called Odin, was known as Woden to the Anglo-Saxons. And the mighty god of thunder, Thor, was called Thune. They're essentially the same gods, just with names that fit the local language and culture.
Now, you might be thinking these gods are just ancient history, figures from a long-forgotten time. But what if I told you their legacy is hiding in plain sight, in something you use every single day? And this is where it gets really cool. Just take a look at the days of the week in English. Tuesday is named for Tyr, the god of war. Wednesday, that's Woden's day, Odin. Thursday is literally Thor's day from his Anglo-Saxon name Thunor. And Friday is named for the goddess Frigg, or maybe Freya. What's fascinating is that the Germanic peoples got this idea from the Romans, who named days after their gods, and they just swapped in their own team. So yeah, these ancient gods are literally part of your weekly schedule.
That connection to our language is incredible, but the story doesn't stop there. Because in the modern era, Norse paganism isn't just some historical curiosity. It's a living faith that has been reborn.
The most organized version of this revival is called Asatru. The name is Icelandic, and it translates to loyalty to the Aesir, with the Aesir being the main family of Norse gods. It's a movement all about reconstructing and practicing the pre-Christian faith of the North.
And believe me, this isn't just some fringe movement. 1973 was a massive year. That's when the government of Iceland officially recognized Asatru as a religion. That gave it legal standing, and it marked a huge milestone in its modern history. It was a really big step. And since then, the faith has spread to communities all over the world.
So what do modern practitioners, who often call themselves heathens, actually do? Well, they worship the Norse gods through seasonal rituals called blots, which are basically communal feasts and offerings. They also put a really strong emphasis on honoring their ancestors. And to figure all this out, to reconstruct these ancient practices, they rely on historical texts like the Eddas. Those are collections of Old Norse myths, and on modern archaeological findings.
But this modern revival isn't without some serious challenges. Like a lot of growing movements, it's facing an intense internal struggle over its identity and over its sacred symbols.
At the heart of this whole thing is a deep internal divide. On one side, you have some extremist white supremacist groups that have tried to co-opt Norse symbols and mythology, twisting them into symbols of some imagined racial purity. But on the other side, you have the vast majority of the heathen community who explicitly and very forcefully reject this hateful appropriation.
And this isn't just some informal argument either. Major international heathen organizations like the Troth have released formal statements making their position crystal clear. They affirm that the religion is open to absolutely everyone, no matter their ethnicity, and that there is zero room for racism in their communities.
And history itself offers the strongest counter-argument to these claims. The people who first told these stories, the Vikings and other Germanic peoples, they were not an isolated group. Not even close. They were world travelers, traders, and explorers. They intermarried with people across Europe, the Middle East, even into Asia. The historical record shows a world of constant cultural exchange, which completely contradicts the idea that these gods or these symbols could ever belong to one single group.
This entire story, from all those ancient variations to this very modern conflict, it brings us to a really fundamental question about culture, about religion, and about history itself.
So think about this. Can a religious or cultural tradition really be owned by any one group? And what gives a person or a group the right to define what it really means for everyone else? It's a powerful question, and it's one that the modern followers of this ancient path are grappling with every single day.